Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of Financial Aid 101. My name is Adam Essex, and I'm with Federal Student Aid of the U.S. Department of Education in Washington, D.C. And it's a pleasure to be with you today to discuss some of the issues surrounding paying for college and how to secure financial aid to help make your college dreams come true. I'm accepting questions throughout the presentation, so feel free to enter them into the dialog box on your screen if you're viewing this live. And we'll be happy to take your questions as we go through the presentation. So let's begin. First, I wanted to talk about what I'll be covering. All of us at some point are considering college as an option, so we'll talk about what it means to think about college and whether you can or should go to college. There are a lot of untruths about financial aid, and I'll be discussing some of the myths that exist. I'll provide an overview of the federal financial aid programs and how you can apply for and be considered for all of these programs to offset the cost of college. And I'll also talk about our financial aid application, the Fafsa, which is the way that you're going to apply for and receive financial aid benefits. I'll also discuss what you can expect to happen after you apply for benefits via the Fafsa. We'll discuss scholarships, state aid, institutional aid, and again, I'll be taking your questions as we go through the presentation. So first, why consider college? There are a lot of reasons you might consider college. One of the most obvious is that studies have shown that individuals that have a college education have greater earning potential throughout their lives. But in addition to money, a college education is going to afford you the life that you want. It's going to enable you to make smart decisions, to think critically, and to ask the right questions. College graduates are healthier, they have more successful relationships, they live longer. So there are a lot of attributes that flow from having gone to college that can benefit you for many decades down the road. Let's talk about some of the myths. One of the most frequent myths is that it costs money to apply for financial aid. This is absolutely false. Applying for financial aid is free through the Fafsa, the free application for federal student aid, which you can access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at www.fafsa.gov. Another myth is that the Fafsa form is too hard to fill out. The truth is, the form has never been easier to fill out than it is now. It takes the average family about 20 minutes to fill it out. If an applicant or his or her parents have very modest or low income and little or no assets, it could take even less time to complete the Fafsa at fafsa.gov. So it's a small amount of time to invest when you consider that you're investing in the future of the student. Our final myth is that a student might think his or her parents make too much money to qualify for financial aid. That too is untrue. We have many different kinds of financial aid that are available, both need-based aid and non-need-based aid. The only way to be considered for any of this financial aid is by completing the application at fafsa.gov. Money for college comes primarily from two sources. Individuals and their families, if applicable, are required to participate in the student's education by contributing money towards the cost of college. That's the first component, family and student contribution. The second is financial aid. So these two together are what are going to cover the complete cost of your education. Now we're going to talk more in a minute about whose information goes on the FAFSA. A student will be listing his or her parents' information on the FAFSA if he's or she is a dependent student, and I'll talk about what that means in a second. Dependent students provide parental information. Independent students do not provide parental information. So where does the money for college come from? What are the types of financial aid that exist? Financial aid is basically money to pay for college, vocational school, or technical school. It comes in the form of grants, loans, scholarships, work study, other types of financial aid. It comes from a lot of different sources. The biggest provider of financial aid in the nation is the U.S. Department of Education. The federal government provides over $150 billion in financial aid every single year, so the largest provider of financial aid by far. The next largest provider would be the state governments. Almost every state in the union distributes state money to help offset the cost of education for state residents. In addition, Colleges and universities are in the business of helping offset the cost of education by providing financial aid to students. Also, private foundations, employers and private companies, and professional service organizations. Each of these entities composes the financial aid sector, and each of these entities is involved in providing financial aid to offset the cost of college. Federal student assistance, in a nutshell, is financial assistance for eligible students who want to enroll in an eligible program at a college or university. And there's only one way to apply for financial aid from the federal government. Again, it is through the Fafsa. What does Fafsa stand for? As I mentioned, it is the free application for federal student aid, or Fafsa. It's available at fafsa.gov. The earliest that individuals can apply is January 1st of their senior year in high school. So at the time of this broadcast, it's February 2015. High school seniors can go online tonight to fafsa.gov and complete their FAFSA. Adults who are out of high school can complete the FAFSA at any time. And we encourage you to never pay anyone for assistance with the FAFSA. It's absolutely free to apply online at fafsa.gov, and we feel that it's easier and faster than ever to do so. Next, let's talk about some of the basic eligibility requirements. For most of our financial aid programs, the applicants will need to demonstrate financial need by filling out the FAFSA at fafsa.gov. Applicants will need a social security number. Males will need to be registered with the Selective Service, which is also known as the draft. And there are other requirements, I won't read this slide, that basically every applicant's going to need to meet in order to receive federal financial aid through FAFSA. One of the big questions we're receiving now is about whether or not undocumented students can receive federal student aid. And in order to receive federal student aid through the FAFSA, an applicant needs to be in one of the following citizenship requirements. They need to either be a U.S. citizen, which means you were born in the United States or Puerto Rico or the U.S. Virgin Islands or other qualifying areas, or you were born anywhere in the world to U.S. citizens, or you are a naturalized citizen of the United States. So one of those three categories is a citizen and eligible. The next would be a U.S. national. These are individuals that are born in the Pacific Trust Territories out in the Pacific Ocean, typically know who they are. Another type of eligible non-citizen would be a permanent resident of the United States. These are sometimes referred to as green card holders. And we have specific categories of non-citizens that are also eligible. These are individuals that meet certain entry requirements into the United States and have an I-94 record that is stamped essentially with that specific category. If you want more information on citizenship types, you can certainly check it out at our website, studentaid.gov/eligibility/non-US citizens. The following types of individuals are not eligible for federal student aid. So visitors, foreign workers, temporary workers, and undocumented residents or students are not at this time eligible for federal student aid. If you'd like more information on the full visas listing, feel free to check it out at the State Department, www.travel.state.gov/visa. In the news, there's a discussion of a lot of changes that have been proposed for immigration policies within the United States, and I'll cover these briefly. The first is the DREAM Act, which was first proposed way back in 2001. The DREAM Act has never passed the United States Congress, so it is not law. It is an idea or a philosophy at this point. It would create a path to citizenship for certain students that were brought to the United States as very young individuals. These individuals are sometimes called dreamers, and they would benefit under the passage of a DREAM Act, but again, the DREAM Act has not passed, and it has not enabled dreamers to become eligible for federal student aid. President Obama took two presidential actions recently. The first was in 2012, the second was in 2014. The first one was the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, which would essentially enable individuals who are brought to the United States as young people to receive certain benefits, such as obtaining a driver's license. They can obtain a valid Social Security number. They can legally work in the United States and live here without fear of imminent deportation. The DAPA is the Deferred Action for Parental Accountability or Arrivals. This applies to parents of U.S. citizens. So if the parent is undocumented, but they have a child that is a U.S. citizen, then the parent can apply for the DAPA privileges, which would be also expanded benefits for that individual person. At this time, these two actions are being challenged in the court system. A federal judge in South Texas has argued that these are unconstitutional. So like all of you, we at the department will be watching this very closely as the courts determine the legality of these two actions, DACA and DAPA. And regardless, it would take congressional action to extend financial aid eligibility to undocumented residents. But I just wanted to kind of set the context around this issue for you very briefly. If you want more information, certainly you can contact USCIS at the website that's listed on this screen. The basic eligibility requirements do include a question about dependency status, because individuals that have been determined to be dependent need to provide parental information on the FAFSA. Individual FAFSA applicants that are independent do not need to provide parental information on the FAFSA. So what are the questions? They're basically around life circumstances for individuals. Is the individual 24 years of age or older? Is he or she married? Is he in graduate school? Does she have children that she supports at least half-time, etc.? If the FAFSA applicant answers yes to any one of these 13 or so questions that are listed on the FAFSA, the applicant is automatically independent and does not need to provide parental information on the FAFSA. If the applicant answers no to all of these 13 or so questions on FAFSA, then the applicant is dependent and must provide parental information on the FAFSA. So that's the significance of the dependency status issue. Beginning in 2014-2015, we changed the rules around parental information to provide more clarity. Basically, dependent students' FAFSA must include income and other information, for example, asset information, about both legal parents if the parents are living together. So regardless of the marital status of the parents, if they both have a legal obligation for the FAFSA applicant, the student, then their information should be provided on the FAFSA. That's what both of these slides are referencing. Not every family is the same, and we know that when we are collecting FAFSA information, we certainly try to look at each family individually. Some students do have what we refer to as unusual circumstances or special circumstances. These typically are hardships that the student has experienced in his or her life, and they're around categories such as the following. The parents are incarcerated. Maybe the student had to leave home due to an abusive family situation, or they're unsure about their parents' whereabouts, etc. If the student thinks that he or she is in one of these very unique special circumstances, then the student would need to indicate that on the FAFSA by indicating they have a special circumstance. And they would also be required to have a follow-up conversation with the financial aid official at the college or university the student wanted to attend, so that the financial aid official could verify that the student does have a special circumstance. And the determination of the financial aid officer at that university is final and cannot be appealed to us, the U.S. Department of Education. Next, I wanted to talk about what happens with lower or moderate income students. If the family adjusted gross income is less than $50,000, the assets for the individual and the family are not considered when the student is completing the FAFSA application, so it's not required. If the family adjusted gross income is less than $24,000, the applicant will have an automatic zero expected family contribution, or EFC, and it means that the applicant will be eligible for a full Pell Grant award. So again, you don't need to memorize or make notes about any of these things. These are things that happily are automatically going to be happening when you complete your FAFSA at FAFSA.gov. Some key terms for you to consider. The first is the net price. Every university has a net price. It's basically the difference between their cost and any need-based or merit-based aid that the student would be receiving. So the cost minus the free money essentially equals the net price. Every university in the nation is required to have a net price calculator on their website, and I would encourage you to take a look at the websites of the schools you're interested in attending and look at their net price calculators to see what your out-of-pocket expenses could be and what you'll need financial aid to help pay for. Next, let's cover the federal financial aid programs briefly. There are three broad categories. One is that there are federal grants. The next type is federal work study, and the final type are federal student loans. And again, the U.S. Department of Education, which administers these three programs, distributed over $150 billion in financial aid last year in the forms of federal grants, federal work study, and federal student loans. The grants come in three broad types: the Pell Grant, the FSEOG, the Teach Grant, and the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant. And I'll cover those in briefly detail right now. The Pell Grant is really foundational to all the financial aid grants. It's based upon the information the applicant lists in the Fafsa and that expected family contribution, or EFC. It's based upon the enrollment status, either full-time or part-time. And the award amount maximums are, as you see on the screen, for 2014-2015, it's $5,730. For 2015-2016, it's $5,775. Again, grants are free money that do not have to be repaid. The next type is the FSEOG. Anybody who is Pell Grant eligible is automatically considered for the FSEOG if the university or college the student attends participates in the FSEOG program. The award amounts range from $100 to $4,000. And again, unlike the Pell Grant, in which every college participates, not every college participates in the FSEOG program. But the good news is when you complete your FAFSA at fafsa.gov, you're being considered for everything. You don't have to indicate that you want to be considered for specific programs. We will automatically consider you. Next is the Teach Grant Award. This is a wonderful award for anyone that wants to enter the teaching profession. You need to be enrolled in a college or university that participates in the Teach Grant program, and not all of them do. You need to be enrolled in coursework that is leading up to you being a certified teacher in the state in which you reside, and you need to demonstrate certain academic achievements. In addition to this, individuals will have to sign a service agreement with us, and at the bottom of the screen you'll see some of the service agreement requirements. And they are that you teach at least 4 years in a public or private university, that you teach in an area of high need, in a school that serves low-income families, and that if you don't fulfill these teaching obligations, the Teach Grant will convert into an unsubsidized student loan. Not the end of the world, but it just means that the recipient would go from having a grant to having a loan. So individuals want to be very thoughtful prior to receiving a Teach Grant to make sure they will be able to fulfill the criteria in the service agreement. Unfortunately, many thousands of students have lost a parent due to the military action in Iraq or Afghanistan. And as a result, we are providing additional financial aid for those individuals. It is the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant. It's for individuals that are less than 24 years old, enrolled in college at least part-time, and again, lost a parent or a guardian due to military action in Iraq or Afghanistan. The current maximum award is $5,311.71. And again, if an applicant is eligible for this special service grant, we're working closely with DoD to identify who these individuals are to make sure that they're going to be considered. In addition to the grants, we have other types of financial aid programs. We have the work study program, and we have federal education loans. So let's talk about those quickly. Regardless of how you are enrolled in college, you might be considered for specific types of loans. The work study program is, as the name would imply, given to individuals that are enrolled at least half-time in a college or university. and they're able to get a job, the school's going to help them find employment either on or off campus for at least minimum wage. And the work study funds are going to be used to help pay for that student's salary and offset the cost of education at the college or university. The work study program is a great program. And so we encourage you on the FAFSA to indicate that you're interested in the work study program. There is a specific question that you can indicate you want work study, and I would encourage you to check yes on that. The loan programs are, as the name applies, um, tools that allow students or parents to borrow money to help pay for the college education. So based upon what level of academics the student is pursuing, they might be offered different types of student loans. Undergraduates might be offered a Perkins loan program or a Stafford loan program. Graduate students could get Perkins or Stafford loan programs, and then the parents might be offered a plus loan. So the school will help you based upon your level of study determine what types of financial aid and what types of federal education loans you might be eligible for. I covered federal work study earlier, and here's a slide that's depicting all of the details around it. The Perkins loan, which I mentioned briefly, is a great loan because it has a really low interest rate of 5%. Undergraduates can borrow up to $5,500. Graduate and professional students can borrow up to $8,000. Again, not every school participates in the Perkins loan program, so if you're interested, please contact the financial aid office of the school you would like to attend. Direct loans come in two types. One is subsidized and one is unsubsidized. The subsidized loan is a loan where the government pays the interest while the student is in school or during other eligible periods, such as they're in their 6-month grace period following college. This is a great program because it means the student is going to be accruing less debt since the government is paying the interest while the student's in school. The other type of direct loan is an unsubsidized loan. And the difference is that the student is responsible for interest that accrues on the unsubsidized loan while the student's in college. So the loan amount that the student will be graduating with is theoretically higher with an unsubsidized loan because the interest has been accruing while the student's in school. And again, the information you put on your FAFSA is going to help the financial aid office determine whether you're eligible for a subsidized loan or an unsubsidized loan. I've received a couple of questions, so I want to take a moment just to answer those quickly. One is from Ayo, I believe the name, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Ayo. Ayo wants to know if the parents are in another country, but the student is a U.S. citizen, and financially it's getting tougher for them to pay for the financial education. Would they consider, is the student considered independent or dependent? And that's a wonderful question. And the way you're considered independent or dependent is by answering those 13 or so questions on the FAFSA that will determine whether you have to provide your parents' financial information. It really doesn't have to do with whether or not they reside in the United States or somewhere else. It really has to do with whether or not you're age 24 or older, you're a graduate student, you have dependents that you support at least half-time, or you're a veteran of the military services, etc. If you answer yes to any one of those questions, you're automatically independent and you do not need to provide mom and dad's parental information on the FAFSA. If you answer no to all of those questions, regardless of where your parents live, you will need to provide your parents' information on your FAFSA. I hope that answers your question. The next one is from Evelyn, and Evelyn would like to know, my family has an adjusted gross income and a taxable income spot on their 1040A. How does that apply to the FAFSA? So Evelyn, when you are completing your tax return, or when your parents are completing their tax return, you're just going to transfer the information from the tax return to your FAFSA form. And the adjusted gross income is one of those fields that we want to know from your tax return. You'll put it into your FAFSA form. Now, for those of you that have already done your taxes and you did them electronically and you did them some time ago, maybe more than 2 or 3 weeks ago, you might be able to pull in your tax return information automatically into the FAFSA application, which is going to save you a lot of time. If you didn't do your taxes, you're still waiting to do your taxes, you can use your prior year tax return, plug in that tax return information, and then when you do your taxes for the year, go back to FAFSA.gov and update. It's very easy to do. So don't wait to do your FAFSA. Do your FAFSA first, and if you have to, use your prior year tax return information. And then when you do your taxes for the year, which at the time of this airing, it would be the 2014 taxes. When you do your 2014 tax return, go back to FAFSA.gov and update with that information. Thank you both for those questions, and please feel free to keep them coming in. Next, we have a question. I wanted to talk about the PLUS loan, which is a loan for parents and graduate students. It's going to allow them to borrow up to the cost of attendance. So the borrowing power is quite significant. If the cost of attendance at the university is $50,000, a parent or a graduate or professional student can borrow up to $50,000 with a PLUS loan. Keep in mind that the PLUS loan does have a credit check, and borrowers must not have a negative credit history. I think we have another question that has come in. Let me just take a look at that. This question is from Diane. Diane wants to know, when you talk about income, is that your parents' income for the last year or current income from the current year? Thank you for that question, Diane. Let me see if I can clarify for everyone. At the time of this airing, it's February 2015. If you're completing your FAFSA now, you're a high school senior and you're ready to go online tonight and complete your FAFSA at FAFSA.gov, you would be putting in your 2014 tax return information. If you, the student, had a job and you filed a tax return, you'd be inputting your information. And certainly if you're a dependent FAFSA filer, you're going to be inputting your parents' financial information and their 2014 tax return information into FAFSA as well. Now, because many states have state deadlines for financial aid, you don't want to wait to do your FAFSA. You want to do it as soon as possible after January 1st. So if your parents haven't done their tax return, Diane, you can use your prior year tax return, which would be the 2013 tax return. Plug in that information into your FAFSA, and then when they do the 2014 taxes, make sure you go back to FAFSA.gov and update with your 2014 tax return, the accurate and most recent tax return. In this way, you'll make sure to meet any state deadlines. If you wait to do your FAFSA until you've done your taxes, you might miss your state deadline. If you don't know when your state deadline is, we list most of them on our website at FAFSA.gov on the front page. Look at deadlines and you can see them listed. Most of the state deadlines occur in the March, April, and May timeframe of every single year. So again, you'll want to apply as soon as possible at FAFSA.gov between January 1st and your state deadline. Next, I wanted to talk about the interest rates for our education loans. Again, this is not information that you need to memorize or even make note of. It is certainly available on our website, which I'm going to reference at the end of this presentation. But you can see the websites, the interest rates are very low when you would compare them to, say, for example, a consumer loan. The perfect loan rate is 5%, and they range all the way up to 7.21% for the PLUS loan. The PLUS loan interest rate is a little bit higher because there's more risk involved with that. As you remember, individuals can borrow up to the cost of attendance with a federal PLUS loan. So with more risk comes a slightly higher interest rate. I've received another question, so let me just take a look at that. Catherine asks, what makes you eligible for the federal Pell Grant? And it's a great question, Catherine. The federal Pell Grant, like all the other federal financial aid programs, is awarded based upon information that an applicant submits via FAFSA.gov. So the only way to be considered for a federal Pell Grant is to complete a FAFSA and submit it to us. And based upon the information you put on the FAFSA and your parents, if applicable, we will determine what types of financial aid you're eligible for. If you're eligible for a federal Pell Grant, you can use that federal Pell Grant award at any college or university in the nation. It's completely portable. So thank you for your question. Feel free to submit them as you're able, and I'll take them throughout the presentation. In addition to the federal education loans, many entities offer private or what we call alternative loans. And we want you to be very careful about these loan products. They do not have the same consumer protections and provisions that federal education loans have. The federal education loans, for example, if the student becomes totally and permanently disabled, the loan is forgiven. If, God forbid, the student dies, the loan is completely forgiven. This is not the case with most of the private student loans. They typically have higher interest rates and much more stringent terms and conditions. So if the college or university you want to attend is offering you a private student loan, please read the fine print very carefully and make sure that you ask for your federal education loans first. I think we have another question, so let me access that and read it quickly. Oh, Catherine, you're welcome. Next, FAFSA, how and when to apply. The FAFSA, as I've mentioned many times, is available at fafsa.gov. It is the only way to be considered for federal, state, and college financial aid, and it's absolutely free to apply. High school seniors apply after January 1st of their senior year, and they want to apply before their state deadline. Things to keep handy when you're applying. We've talked about the tax return. If you've done your 2014 taxes, you're going to input that information into FAFSA. If you haven't, you can either estimate your tax return or use your 2013 tax return and put that information in. But it's vital that you go back to FAFSA.gov and update. If you are a permanent resident of the United States or you have an alien registration number, you're going to want to input that information into the FAFSA. It's not necessary, but if you have driver's license number, students, you can certainly input that information into the FAFSA as well. It will help with your school financial aid processing. Veterans are going to input their veterans benefits. And then, of course, you're going to list all the income and asset and demographic information about yourself. In order to make the process completely paperless, both the parent and the student will be obtaining a PIN to sign their FAFSA. The PIN can be obtained in advance at www.pin.ed.gov, pin.ed.gov. We're going to be transitioning very quickly, very soon, to a username and password process. So if you're doing the FAFSA in February or March or April even of 2015, you may be accessing the PIN to sign your form electronically. However, later in the year, we look forward to launching the new username and password capability to electronically sign the FAFSA. This is a screenshot of what the FAFSA looks like at fafsa.gov. It's available in both English and in Spanish, and we have online help available. If at any point you have a question about one of the particular items on the FAFSA, you can get real-time, on-time help from one of our financial aid experts. You can also give us a call at any time during normal business hours and during peak processing season. We're open on Saturday and Sunday at 1-800-4FED8. That's 1-800-433-3243. I'll say it again, 1-800-433-3243. The financial aid experts are standing by to assist with your questions. When you log on at FAFSA.gov, this is what it looks like. It's going to ask you which year you want to complete. We always have two FAFSAs running. The first is for individuals that are in college right now. And for that year, it's the 2014-2015 FAFSA. If you're a high school senior or an individual thinking about enrolling later in 2015, you'd be completing the 2015-2016 FAFSA. Very easy. I mentioned the PIN. That is the current process for electronically signing the FAFSA. If you want to obtain a PIN in advance, you can do so at this URL. Both the parent and the student will need a PIN to sign electronically. If the parent of the applicant is an undocumented parent, undocumented resident in the United States, they cannot obtain a PIN, but they can simply print out a signature page at the end of the process, submit that to us, and the FAFSA will be processed just fine. If you've done your taxes for the year, as I mentioned, there is an IRS data retrieval process in place where we can pull your adjusted gross income and other information from the IRS directly into your FAFSA session. It has, as of this date, already launched. So when you're in FAFSA, we will let you know whether or not that is an option for you. What to expect after applying? When you go to FAFSA.gov, you complete the FAFSA. You're going to sign it with your PIN, or if you're viewing this presentation later in 2015, you would have signed it with your username and password. You're going to list up to 10 colleges and universities on your FAFSA, and they automatically electronically get the processed FAFSA information, and they're going to tell you what financial aid you would be able to receive at that university. And this is done through something called an award letter. Sometimes schools wait until the student is formally admitted before issuing award letters. Other colleges are a little more proactive and they'll give award letters to individuals that have merely listed the school on the FAFSA. So check with your college about what their process is. But you will receive an award letter, and you can compare one school with the other to see what types of financial aid each school has offered you. You're then going to make a determination about which school is the best investment for you based upon the financial aid offers at the college or universities. And then some students are selected for an audit process, which we call verification. Don't need to remember this or memorize it. Just know that the college may contact you and say, great, you have been admitted for enrollment at this particular college. Here's your award letter. And oh, by the way, we need you to bring in mom and dad's tax return or a copy of your tax return or your photo ID, etc. It's just called verification. And it's a end of the process audit process to make sure that the information being submitted on the FAFSA is accurate and complete to the best of your knowledge. Once the FAFSA has been submitted, I mentioned that you would hear back from us really quickly. If you provide an email address and you apply online at fafsa.gov, you'll hear back from us within 2 to 3 days. And you're going to receive what we call the Student Aid Report, or SAR. And basically, this is just a summary of all the information that you put into your FAFSA. And we'll tell you if there are any errors on it or if there's any missing information. And it's your opportunity to update or correct your FAFSA if you need to. We'll also have your early financial aid eligibility listed on the SAR. Let's talk about some key terms within the FAFSA process. The first is cost of attendance. Think of it as the full sticker price of the college or university. The thing we're most familiar with is tuition. The cost of attendance really includes much more than that. It will include student fees, books, room and board, transportation. If the university requires health insurance coverage, it could include that. So all of those things are components of the full cost of attendance. Every university is required to determine and publish their cost of attendance. So it should be easily available information for you as you're thinking about colleges. Know that the cost of attendance varies widely among colleges and universities, and we want you to make an informed decision about which college is the right fit for you based upon cost and, of course, the academic programs offered at the college or university. The expected family contribution is something that is the result of completing and submitting a FAFSA. When you submit a FAFSA, we will determine what the EFC is for you and your family, and it is expressed as a multi-digit code. It is not a dollar amount, even though it looks like a dollar amount. It really is an indicator of the financial strength of the family. The higher the EFC, the less need-based aid the family may receive. The lower the EFC, the more need-based aid the family might be receiving. So again, the EFC is just an indicator of the resources that the student and his or her family, if applicable, can bring to bear to pay for the educational expenses for the student. Financial need is also what is indicated by having completed the FAFSA. It's the amount of the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution equals financial need. So it's a very simple formula. So if the cost of attendance at a university is $25,000 and your EFC is $5,000, many institutions will say $25,000 minus, we can expect the family to logically come up with $5,000. So the financial need would be $20,000. That's what they're essentially going to try to package with financial aid. The family contribution is, again, what the family is assumed to be able to pay for the cost of attendance at the university the student wants to attend. It varies from family to family, and under-resourced families, again, will have a lower EFC than families with a lot of resources. The family contribution can come from many different sources. The primary way is usually money from work, the job that mom or dad has or the student has. It comes from the personal savings of the family, or it may come from education and savings accounts that the family or grandparents or others might have set up to help offset the educational expenses for the student. I mentioned the formula for financial need, and it's shown here. Cost of attendance, which is all the things that go into um, the total cost of a university, minus the amount that the student can be expected to pay, equals financial need. And this is the component that the university is going to be packaging through their financial aid. Some schools will package above financial need, but those schools typically are the exception. The award letters that will be sent to you by schools, typically that you've been admitted to and listed on your Fafsa, look something like this. The financial need was $13,000. The university is trying to meet this total need through various financial aid components, scholarships, grants, and loans. When you complete the FAFSA, as I mentioned, you can list up to 20 colleges and universities on your FAFSA. When you list them, we're going to provide some key matrix about each of these schools that, again, will help you make an informed decision about whether it's the right school for you. We're going to list the college website. We're going to have the school type. We're going to list the school's tuition and fees. We'll talk about net price average, graduation rates, retention rates, transfer rates. All of these things are helping you be an informed consumer so that you're not choosing a school merely based upon emotion. You're choosing a school that's going to be good value and a good investment for the student. There are many, many resources that you can access, and I'm going to move through these quickly. Our primary resource for students and parents is the website studentaid.gov. Feel free to check it out, available in both English and in Spanish. It is designed around the life cycle of the student. You'll see the gentleman on the far left. How do I prepare for college? He's making those early decisions about, can I go to college? Is college possible? All the way through to the young lady on the right. How do I manage my loans? She's out of college and she's seeking information and tools on how to effectively manage her education loans. So please check out our information at studentaid.gov. We're also on various social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our page on Facebook is Federal Student Aid. We have a lot of information that we post that might be helpful for students and parents. We're also on Twitter. You can follow us at FAFSA. Once a month, on the last Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we have a question and answer session live on Twitter, which we call our office hours. Feel free to check that out. And we have a lot of great videos on our YouTube site. The page on YouTube is Federal Student Aid. Feel free to view those and share them with others if you'd like really great information on the financial aid programs, how to apply, and what it means. This is just a screenshot of our Facebook page, and you can see that we're going to be providing timely information throughout the year to help you know what you need to be doing to position yourself for financial aid success. The Twitter handle is at Fafsa, and this is a screenshot of what our Twitter page looks like. You can see that we have posts that are ongoing throughout the year based upon, again, the life cycle of the student. In the fall, we might have messaging about standardized testing, or are you looking for colleges you want to attend? Are you applying to colleges? And then in the early spring, we have information about FAFSA, how to apply, when you should be applying, etc. The live Q&A session that I referenced is called our office hours. It's available once a month, and you can follow us, and we often are trending at hashtag AskFAFSA. So feel free to check that out, again, the last Wednesday of every single month. This is just a screenshot of our YouTube page where all of our videos are residing. And if you work with a church group, or you work with a school group, or a Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop, this is a really great way to share information. Many people are visual learners, so you can share our videos with them and they can get a really great high-level overview of what it means to apply using the FAFSA, or what are the federal financial aid programs and how do they work. Our websites are mobile optimized. We know that young people love to use smartphones. And so you can view our websites on your smartphone with great ease because of the optimization that we've done for mobile platforms. If you are not yet a high school senior, maybe you are a freshman or sophomore in high school, it doesn't mean that you can't get an early awareness of what your FAFSA will be either. You can go on to the FAFSA website at fafsa.gov and click on the link that says Thinking About College, which is highlighted here in the lower part of the screen, and you'll access our tool, the FAFSA Forecaster tool. This is going to enable students to get an early awareness of what their federal financial aid eligibility might be. So even though the young people aren't ready to submit a formal FAFSA at FAFSA.gov, they're not high school seniors, they can still get an early awareness for themselves or their family by going to FAFSA.gov and completing the FAFSA Forecaster tool. We've compiled a lot of information about colleges. We want, again, for you to make the most informed decision you can about college. And so feel free to check out our college information and transparency center, which is listed here on this slide. You can access it at collegecosts.ed.gov. It has many different tools that are going to be useful to you as you're thinking about college. One is the College Scorecard, which is an online tool that makes it easier for you to compare colleges. You can compare around such criteria as graduation rates, loan default rates, earnings potential, etc. So make sure you're checking out the collegecosts.ed.gov website. The College Navigator is a great school search type. It's going to allow you to search for a school based upon cost of attendance, net price, campus security, etc. All of those components are built into the College Navigator college search engine. The financial aid shopping sheet is also available at the College Cost site. And basically, schools that are participating in the financial aid shopping sheet will be offering you a unified letter that's going to be showing the information pertinent to that particular college. So rather than colleges each having their own unique information that looks different, sounds different, feels different, the financial aid shopping sheet is really about consolidating information in a streamlined way so that students and families can easily see the information they need about particular institutions. I talked about the net price calculator. It is the way to determine what your out-of-pocket expenses may be. When you take cost of attendance and subtract out your free money, such as grants or scholarships. We have a budgeting fact tool that's available at our flagship website, studentaid.gov. Feel free to check it out if you'd like any information or tips on how to become more financially literate, to make sure that you're borrowing responsible and being prepared to be financially responsible while you're in college and beyond. Let's talk quickly about the state financial aid that might be available. There are lots of scholarships that are available. We don't offer them through FAFSA.gov, but you can do a separate search for them through your favorite web browser. You can also talk to corporations, churches, other organizations, talk to your high school counselor about what scholarships they like or may have been successful for people from your high school in the past. Never pay for scholarships. We have a great free scholarship search on our website, studentaid.gov. Institutional aid is money that's offered by a college to help pay for your educational expenses. Many times they use our FAFSA data in order to make these institutional awards. So make sure that you are filling out your FAFSA as soon as possible after January 1st so that you are being considered for any state funds that might be coming your way. Next, let's continue on by talking about how you can contact us. Some of you are viewing this presentation live. Some of you will be viewing it in the weeks and months to come. If you have a question, feel free to give us a call at our Federal Student Aid Information Center at 1-800-4FED-AID. That number is 1-800-433-3243. We have financial aid experts standing by who can converse in English and in Spanish. And regardless of your question, hopefully they can provide assistance. If you're online at FAFSA.gov and you have questions about a particular piece of information we're asking for, you can give us a call. If you need help in adding schools, the school code to your FAFSA, you can call us about that. Or if you just have general questions about financial aid, including student loans and repayment terms, you can give us a call at 1-800-433-3243. The hours of operation for this call center vary, but during our peak processing times, which are at the very beginning of the year and then around the August timeframe, we typically increase our call availability. At this time, I welcome any other questions that you might have or comments. If you're viewing this presentation live, feel free to submit a question to me and I'll be happy to take it. And we have one that's just come in. Let me take a look at that. Sarah wants to know if she is required to put her parents' information on the FAFSA even though she is age 26. And Sarah, you are not required because you have met one of our specific criteria within the dependency status section. As I mentioned earlier, there are about 13 questions we ask to determine if an applicant is dependent. They were around age. Are you at least age 24? And yes, Sarah, you're 26, so you have met that particular criteria. You do not need to provide information on your FAFSA for your parents, just your own information. And other listeners, if you don't meet the age criteria, you'd want to look at the other 13 questions to see if you meet one of those to determine whether or not you're going to have to provide parental information on your FAFSA. Another question that's come in, let me take a look at that. Michael wants to know, his parents are divorced, and he wants to know if he has to provide information about both parents on his FAFSA. And that's a great question, Michael. The way it works for FAFSA, if your parents are divorced, we ask, where is the student living at least half time? So, Michael, if you're living with your mother more than half the time, it is your mother's information that's going to be put on your FAFSA and not your father's. If you're living with your father more than half the time, then it's going to be your father's information that goes on the FAFSA. And the reason being is that we know that most of the time, where the student resides is where the greatest financial burden is. So if you're living with your mother, she is not only providing housing, she's typically providing food and transportation, medical expenses, maybe private tuition, etc. She's providing a lot of the financial support for you. So it's her information that would go on your FAFSA. If your parents are sharing custody and it is truly 50-50, we're going to ask the family to sit down and make a determination about whose information is going to go on the FAFSA. It's not the job of the U.S. Department of Education to tell you about your family composition. You need to tell us, but it does need to be the individual who's providing more than half the support for the student applicant. Just received another question. Let me take a look at that. Deanne wants to know if you need a PIN to access the information about the transfer rates, etc. You need a PIN to sign the FAFSA, Deanne. You do not need a PIN to just list the colleges and universities on your FAFSA because you haven't signed the FAFSA yet. But keep in mind, all of this information is also available on our website, College Navigator. So if you go to the College Navigator website I referenced earlier, you can get these criteria for any college in the nation and much, much more. We'll provide a wide array of information. You can do a college scholarship search by state or by name of institution. You can search by affiliation, public or private, small, large, etc., and get a wide array of information. We've received another question. It's from Brianna. Brianna wants to know, can the amount of money you receive from FAFSA change if you add your current tax statements? And yes, absolutely. The amount you'll be receiving, Brianna, is based upon the information you put in your FAFSA. And anytime you make a correction or update to your FAFSA form, it could theoretically change the amount of financial aid that you're receiving for the better, or it could reduce the amount of financial aid that you're receiving. Nevertheless, it is critical that you put in the complete accurate information from your 2014 tax return. And if you haven't done your 2014 tax return again, go ahead and estimate or use your prior year tax return, 2013. And then when you've done your 2014 taxes for the year, go back and update. It's very easy to do, but it's going to make sure that you meet your state deadline to qualify for federal, state, and college financial aid, all of them through Fafsa.gov. I'm going to take a look for one last question. Okay, here we have one. Benjamin wants to know about resources that he can access after today's presentation. And I just want to reiterate that you can always give us a call at the number that's on your screen, the 1-800-4FED8 number. And we will be happy to answer any questions, Benjamin, that you might have about the financial aid process or the federal student aid programs, or how to apply or what it means to apply. So if you're watching this at some point in the future after the date that it is aired, and you can't type a question to me specifically, feel free to give us a call at 1-800-4FED8, and we'll be happy to answer any question that you might have. We have almost come to the end of today's presentation. I will pause to see if there are any remaining questions from the audience. And if not, I want to thank you for your participation today. It's been a pleasure. On behalf of the U.S. Department of Education, thank you and best of luck to all of you as you're pursuing your college dreams. Thank you.